Welcome to TV Agro. Today we are in the department of Tolima in the municipality of Saldanha, Rice Municipality, and in the experimental field of Avgust, a company dedicated to the sale of agrochemicals, and in this field where research and development of their products is done. Research we do in rice, in the part of herbicides, insecticides and fungicides. My name is Oscar Rugels, agronomist engineer, and I am the technical director of the company of Avgust Colombia. Saldanha is one of the main rice-growing municipalities in the country. Rice is a very important product, both worldwide and obviously also in Colombia. It is considered the third most important cereal in the world food supply after wheat and corn. In Colombia it is a fundamental part of the family basket of our people. That is why it is a crop that is planted in an area of approximately 450,000 to 500,000 hectares per year. Like any crop that is planted in the open air, it has many phytosanitary problems. From the time it is planted to when we harvest it, problems that are mainly due, in the case of rice, to the problem of weeds, followed by the problem of the importance of diseases and, as a third case, the problem of pests. Although it is still important, it is also important to manage pests. However, in the production costs, the most important value we have in the development of rice cultivation is weeds, because that is where almost 30 to 40% of the production costs are spent on weed management in rice cultivation. Here in Saldanha, currently, about 70% of the area planted in Saldanha is planted under the transplant modality. And all this because the weed problem has been so big that we have always been researching and looking for different ways to manage weeds and have the least impact on yields. That is why they started with chemical sowing using glyphosate, using glufosinate, using many chemical products. Today they are leveled as you can see here. They are pools because the lots are leveled to make pools, to make the transplant and look for another way to manage the weeds. Weeds of this type must always be managed before planting because after planting, we can manage them, but it is much more complicated and more costly. So we do the planting. What is the rice cultivation development process like? After we harvest the rice, as we can see there, in the lot at the back, which is a lot that was harvested this week, we start to prepare it, that is, we put in machinery, tractors with rakes or rotavator, which are special implements to incorporate that organic matter to the soil and let it rot. We let it rot, we put water on it, we let it rot, we let the weeds come out again, and then we can apply the first treatment of agrochemicals to kill the weeds that are coming out of the soil. The weed problem here in this area, or in the rice-growing areas where there is no crop rotation, is becoming more and more complicated as time goes by because we rotate. We do not let the soil rest from rice cultivation and then we rotate rice, for a long time. For example, here it can be 20 years, 30 years that rice continues to be planted without rotation. So all the problems become more specialized, right? For example, in weeds, the main weeds in rice cultivation are grasses, that is, the weeds that are more similar to rice. We have the typical case of red rice. Red rice is a variety of rice that is practically the same as rice but has its differences with the rice that we eat. Because rice is white and this has different colorations that affect the final product and also compete with us for space, water, nutrition and light. So it is not good to have any competition there, as long as it is the only crop. On the other hand, after red rice, the next most important weed is called hog's breath or echinoclecolin, right? It is a weed very similar to rice, and it also has its own segment to manage it. Another weed that is increasing its presence in the crops is the false walker or Descamen rugoso. These three weeds are practically the most important, because there are others but of lesser importance that if we control these three we are controlling at once the other weeds that are. Only these three as to tell you the importance of the management of grasses in the rice crop, because these grasses cause so much damage that they can cause yield losses of more than 40 to 60%. So that is why we must control, and these weeds must be controlled hopefully before establishing our crop or in the first development of the crop. When I say first development of the crop, I am referring to the first 20 to 25 days after planting the crop. So that is the process of weed management, right? That very early or before sowing the crop, because after we sow the crop, after we already have the crop as in this case, it is very complicated to manage it because everything we do to control these weeds we are already affecting the development of our crop. So that is why the management of these weeds has to be very preventive in some initial stages so that the herbicides are more efficient and we can make another evacuation. In this experimental field of Gust keeps doing research and development of its products. So here we do several stages of planting, several uses of herbicides, several herbicide mixtures, so that when we test them, we have them very clear, we present them to our farmers, right? Because that is what we as an agrochemical company always try to do, is to give technical support and accompaniment to our farmers and technical assistance in the management of the problems. We know the products, we know the problems, and we have this experimental field to do that, so here we allow ourselves to make different mixtures, different moments to work the different stages, and based on that we take it out and we tell the farmer, do not do it this way because we already have experience, it is better to do it this way. So if Gus does that for 4 years, we have always been testing, practicing and researching mixtures, new molecules to deliver them to the market, already, well, established. So after it is prepared, it is sown, then comes the process of nutrition management. In every crop is very important the nutrition factor. If we do not nourish the plants properly, we can do everything else well, but we are given to failure, because according to research that other researchers and ourselves have done, the yield gap, that is, that important, very important factor that is about 30–40% of the time, sometimes up to 50% of the potential of a variety is based on us doing a good nutrition of our crop. If we do not adequately nourish our crop, you can be sure that we will have a difference, a decrease in yields of at least 30 to 40%. That nutrition has to be based on soil analysis. But everything that the plant lacks in the soil, what are the needs of the plant? And this is another very important part, and this is given by the experience that farmers and colleagues who manage the crops already have experience when they look at a state of development of the rice. We already know if we have to apply more nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium or microelements or any other nutrient or any other element required by the plant to make its normal development. Then with all that, in addition to that, we must have a good establishment, good weed control, good nutrition. There are always the problems of diseases in our environment, because as we operate in the tropics, and as I always say, this is an open-air factory, then we are under the influence of environmental conditions that unfortunately we cannot modify, we cannot move, but we can accommodate to it, protect the plant from these adverse conditions, right? The main diseases in the rice crop are that since its birth, since its emergence, we have rhizoctonia, which are Diseases that are in the soil. Then comes rhizoctonia, comes here, Meaganinosis you have fusarium, comes sclerorium, comes pidius. They are microorganisms that live in the soil, they are natural inhabitants of the soil, then they will always be there, and when it reaches a being different from those that are there, well, they begin to colonize its root system that first affects and then begins to ascend to the stem and the leaves of the rice. Well, after the diseases that come from the soil, the diseases that attack the plant in the foliar part begin. The main ones in the rice crop is pericularia, which is a disease associated in any part of the world to rice, pericularia. Then it is a stain that dries the leaves and gives it to us, and then we also have to control it. Another disease is Serraclaria nodicin, which is another foliar disease that also attacks the upper part of the plant. However, it is a disease that also comes from the soil, but it is asymptomatic. It shows its symptoms practically when the plant begins its reproduction process. That is to say, around 70, 65 or 70 days. That is why the recommendation is to handle it before 45 days. 45 days we should control it, even if we do not see the symptoms, but the disease is already there and the other disease is already on the ear. It is the spotting of the grain, right? Grain spotting is a complex of diseases that affects the grain. At the moment of detachment it stains the grains, it damages the quality, it damages the filling of the grain. That is, the grain is not well formed, and this affects the quality of the grain we deliver. And when we are going to deliver it in the quality that we are classified there. These would be the 6 or 7 main diseases in rice cultivation in an area like this one. Thank you for joining us today, and if you require more information or further assistance on the pages that are appearing on the screen, please feel free to contact us, and then we will see you again.